I think, on Pokemon Go. But if you are here for Superman, which I'm sure you are, let me introduce our team that we're going to be talking with on the panel. The Superman artist, Pat Gleason. And the writer, Pete Tomasi. So it's nothing you said or nothing that I've said, but just give you a fair warning. And for that reason, we're going to start off with Gene's book, New Superman. I think we've got the slides coming up soon. Right now, actually. And Gene, what can you tell us about New Superman? Throw in some spoilers too so we can get in some real trouble.
Sure. New Superman, the first issue came out just a couple of days ago. It's about a Chinese kid in Kong growing up in Shanghai, who inherits some of Clark Kent's powers, so he becomes the Superman of China. This was not my idea. It was actually the idea of Jim Lee and Jeff Johns. They wanted an Asian version of Superman, and when they brought it to me, the first thing I said was, heck no, I do not want to do that at all. I'm a Chinese American. My mom was born in mainland China and came when she was just a little kid. My dad was born and raised in Taiwan. So I have no first-hand experience of what it's like to grow up in China, you know? And there's like a lot of political and cultural nuances that go into a project like this, and I just thought, man, there's so many landmines, I don't want to do it. But then I flew down to Burbank. I had a meeting with Jim Lee, where I just spent the whole time staring at him, because I grew up on his comics. And then I had a meeting with Jeff Johns. And during those meetings, this character started talking to me. And if you're a writer, you know when a character starts to talk to you, you just gotta do it. So now I'm doing it. Did he talk to me? He talked to me in English. You know why? Because he was being nice, because my Chinese sucks.
Well, one of the things I learned when we were putting the book together, because we were originally calling this The Superman, and I think a note came across that there is no article in the Chinese language.
Yeah, there's no real the in Chinese. You know, I know Chinese well enough to know that, and that's why we ended up changing it.
That's true.
Superman.
Yep. And how did you land on his name? Because I mean, names are so important in the DC universe.
Oh man, it was so hard. I have a friend, an acquaintance who teaches Mandarin at a high school, and she says she spends hours coming up with these Chinese names because there's no like Robert or Harold or Clark that you can actually default to. Every name has a meaning, and we went through multiple iterations before we settled on Ke, which we're translating as Kenan. And Ke is a character that means overcome. We thought that what's more Superman than overcoming? And Nan means south. So Shanghai isn't actually in southern China, but people in the capital of China, in Beijing, call people in Shanghai Southerners. And that's why we decided to go with that.
That's great. Let's look at some of the artwork here.
So the artwork is done by Victor Bogdanovic, who made a name for himself doing Arkham Asylum and Deathstroke. Out of all the things he's done for DC, I think this is his happiest, right? And it really shows. I think the thing I appreciate most about Victor is he is able to infuse humor and action together. And he's brilliant at drawing faces. Our main character, Kong, starts off as kind of a jerk. He's kind of a bully. You know, bullying is a big theme in all of Superman's stories. So he starts off as kind of a jerk, and Victor is great at drawing jerk faces. Like he has jerk faces all through the book, and they're awesome.
We've got a lot of pages to go through here, so let's flip through some.
See, look, right? You look at him, I think that guy's kind of a jerk.
And for some of the folks who might not have picked up #1 yet, you want to kind of summarize?
Sure. So the character that you see, besides the jerk, the woman in the trench coat, her name is Dr. Omen, and she's kind of like a Chinese version of Amanda Waller. I'm a huge Amanda Waller fan. So she works for a secret organization called the Ministry of Self-Reliance, which is actually, if you know Chinese history, it's sort of inspired by the self-strengthening movement in the late 1800s, early 1900s, when China was trying to figure out its response to the West. So the Ministry of Self-Reliance is like a superhero universe version of that, you know, a DC Comics version of that. And they play a huge part in canon getting Superman's powers.
That's great. And you've spoken also about your influences in manga and what you're bringing to the table here, your Eastern versus your Western.
Yeah, I mean, one of the things we talked about is Superman. One of the reasons why I didn't want to do this book is because Superman's supposed to be about truth, justice, and the American way. What does that mean in modern China? It just felt like, that was a huge political landmine, right? And ultimately, I think, Superman is fundamentally American, but he is popular all over the world. He's popular because there's something about the way he expresses American culture that is universal. And that's ultimately what we want to get at with this book and with this character. There's a lot of resonances between being a jerk and traditional Chinese stories. One of my favorite Chinese stories is about the Monkey King. Have you all heard of this? Okay, you know Monkey King. You know Dragon Ball Z, right? Have you all watched? This is a collection of nerds. You guys know Dragon Ball Z. Dragon Ball Z is a modern retelling of this old Chinese story called Journey to the West. And in Journey to the West, the Monkey King, the main character, starts off as this jerk. And his hero's journey is about him becoming selfless, which actually mirrors Clark Kent's as well. If you read early Superman stories from the late 30s and early 40s, that guy starts off as a jerk. He used to beat people up and then sermonize at them. He'd tell them what they did wrong. So our character in this storyline goes through that same arc. The arc that Clark Kent goes through and the arc that the Monkey King goes through.
That's terrific. And we've got some art from number 2 here as well. Can you tell us what's coming up?
Well, so this is a little spoilery, but we actually introduce a Justice League of China, And this actually, we don't mention religion at all in this book, but I actually did draw on my own religious background for this. So I grew up in a Chinese Catholic community, and modern China and religion have this really weird relationship. So in the beginning, I'm going to just drop some history on you, I hope you don't mind. In the beginning, the Chinese communist government was not into religion. They suppressed it. And then they found that people were just practicing religion in secret. So their solution was that they created state-sponsored versions, state-approved versions of all major world religion. So there's a state-approved version of Catholicism, there's a state-approved version of Buddhism, there's a state-approved version of Taoism, of Islam. In New Superman, China is really into American superheroes. The Chinese public is super, super into American superheroes. So the Ministry of Self-Reliance starts off trying to suppress them, and when they find they can't, they decide to create a state-approved version of the Justice League, and that's how New Superman starts. Chinese Batman is a chubby Asian guy.
With a stronger bat robe.
Yes, with a stronger bat robe.
All right, and we have a sneak peek too coming up here.
Yeah, and that's the first Chinese Batman versus Chinese Superman. Yeah, and that's the cover for issue 4. So they're fighting their first team of supervillains, and this is spoilery too. They're going to be the freedom fighters of China, based on characters who take their inspiration from the freedom fighters, led by Uncle Sam, created by Will Eisner.
So what are the correlations there?
So they are a pro-democracy group of supervillains. I figured, let's just go for it, right? That's what I was scared of. Let's just go for it.
Okay, so Gene, I know you have to leave us, but I want to give the opportunity to anyone to ask questions specifically for Gene's book before he disappears, because that would be a shame if you didn't get to ask while he's here. And the microphones are up here. Oh, come on up. Don't be shy. Got a terrific cap for it.
I think there's something underneath that I want to explore.
And I have already seen the first one, and it's very interesting.
Oh, well, thank you. Thank you for reading it. I hope you read the second one, too.
I will, definitely will.
I'm not trying to guilt you into it, but I am trying to guilt you into it, actually.
The only criticize to it is the fried dumplings size is a little bit too big.
Yeah, right. We'll fix that. Those are actually kryptonite. There's a reason for it.
Okay, thanks a
Come
lot.
get your cap here.
All right.
I was a big fan of the grade 10 characters, and specifically August, General, and Iron, and those other Chinese characters that were introduced several years ago. Are there any chances that we can see more of them pop up in New Superman?
General August and I shows up in issue 3. I don't know if I'm supposed to say that, but I'm good.
Thank you.
Hi, I wanted to know if you could say some words in Chinese. Well, whatever.
Do you speak Chinese?
No.
Okay. 你好，我的国语很糟糕. So if you're Chinese, I just said my Mandarin is terrible, because it is. I sound like an American trying to talk Mandarin.
Hi, are you afraid of any backlash from people who think that you're handling something culturally sensitive wrong? It looks like you're taking a lot of care with it, or from people that are just racist and...
Yeah, no, yes, I'm freaked out of my mind. That's why I said no. I'm freaked out. I'm totally freaked out by this. Like, one of the things that I wanted to see, I just want to see what would happen. I dropped the word democracy in the first issue, and I just want to, let's see what happens. And so far, nothing's happened, which is nice, right? But I do think, and this is credit to DC. I do see some cynicism that DC is just doing this to capture the Chinese market. If you were trying to capture the Chinese market, you do not talk about democracy in your first storyline, right? So the fact that they're letting me do this is amazing. But I'm freaked out. I'm totally freaked out.
That's why he's leaving, actually.
That's great. Okay, so I think we want to move along on the panel, and please, everyone,
Right, thank you all.
you're the team right now. We brought back the original numbering for the series. So brought back. Dan, what do you have in store for us?
Well, right now we're still in the midst of a fight with Doomsday, and it's also all complicated by the fact that, as you know, the Superman that was representing the universe died. A different Superman has come back, the Superman that we think of as the pre-Flashpoint Superman. And at the same time, right before that happened, Lex Luthor proclaimed himself Superman of Metropolis. So we have a natural conflict between Superman and Lex, because our Superman knows that deep down Lex Luthor can't possibly be good, or that's what he thinks anyway. And it's all complicated by the fact that there is another Clark Kent running around in Metropolis that no one can possibly explain. So you add that all together, along with a little bit of Lois Lane and their son John, and it makes for an entirely new kind of story structure for Superman to exist in. So even though he has fought Doomsday before, those things change everything up for him.
Great, and we have some art too, as well as Tyler, the artist, one of the artists on the team. You guys want to talk about how you guys work together and how you're putting this book together?
Go for it.
Yeah, this isn't the first issue of the series, so I got reference material, of course, for Lex, and the Superman costume was changed slightly, but just the process basically it's been really fun to actually look at Dan's old stuff too. The Death of Superman stuff has been really, I got that stuff sitting there in my office, and just being able to look at that and go through that, and, with Doomsday, trying to kind of do my version of that character, but of course using Dan's material for reference. But really fun so far. I've done 2 issues. My next one comes out, I think, this coming week. But just being able to work on Superman is, of course, a privilege. But just the storyline is the mystery, and there's just a lot. There's a lot of cool stuff coming up. And it's just been really fun. The other artists on the team are extremely good as well. So I'm just happy to be working with the team. So
Tyler, you're absolutely crushing it on art. Do you ever draw some things here and say, I need to add more spikes on Doomsday? I gotta have
well, actually, something did come up with Doomsday in one of the issues. just kind of like he's transforming, like like he does, and we needed to expand the spikes coming out of the shoulders, so his look is kind of progressing, and so later on as the issues go, you'll kind of notice him change a little bit. And this is interesting, this scene here, because of course I have some reference material, but I didn't draw the pattern on Clark's shirt in any of the panels, so I had to go back and do that. I had to make the patches and basically scan those in, just so he could have the pattern on his shirt to match the previous issues. Because we were all kind of working at the same time, so we didn't have, I actually couldn't look at like the full issues to really see everything I needed to look at. And that's the thing with comics, you're working at the same time as, well, at least with the double shipped books, that's kind of how it's been, You're not the only artist on the team, so you have to try to make sure that everything matches up, and there's a lot of questions and some corrections and stuff like that, so it's just, we'll get used to it, but...
So it wasn't more spikes, it was more plaid.
Yeah, more plaid.
You know what's weird is, if you sit down and watch a movie, everybody likes to think that, gee, they shot the movie in sequence. They don't do it that way, and doing comics that are connected like this are exactly that same sort of problem. If you think of it this way, if you have artist A drawing issue 2 of something, chances are artist B has already started on issue 3, even though the end of issue 2 is supposed to dovetail into that, and it's trying to keep everybody together. And in that case, yes, we have to make our occasional wardrobe and spike adjustments, yes.
I have a question here from our Twitter feed. Kenny Crayley asks, what's it like writing the flashbacks for Action Comics?
The flashbacks for Action Comics, I assume she means as far as the Death of Superman go, flashing back to that. That's always kind of weird because that's a long time ago now. And, it's more or less etched in my mind. I pretty much know every page and every panel that went across all 4 of the Superman books at that time, but I still have to go back and pull reference for Tyler and Steven as they were going forward and drawing it. So it's a little weird to go back and access that again.
Yeah, I mean, that scene was really, really cool to draw.
Yeah.
Just the nostalgia of it. Lois's flowing hair, right? Lois was cool. Just, because I looked at this comic all the time as a kid, and it was a big deal. So it was just really awesome experience to be able to draw those scenes.
That's great. We've got some sneak peek art here too that we haven't shown anyone. What can you tell us about this stuff here? Action 961 cover.
So yeah, I'm not sure who did that cover.
Yeah, that's Doomsday. That cover was drawn by Clay Mann, and that features Doomsday coming perilously close to Lois and John, which tells you a little bit about what's happening in those issues. That as the battle between Superman and Doomsday grows, one of the things we have found out in terms of Doomsday's origin is that he is particularly keyed in on Kryptonians, and there comes a point where he senses another one on Earth, and it's actually John. And the fight ends up heading, towards a certain farm where a certain woman and a certain child live that really complicates the fight for Superman.
So we have another cover here for Action.
Yeah, that's an awesome cover, also done by Clay Mann, and wanted to get into the idea here of once we get into Actions 964 and 963 and 964, we start to focus on this mysterious Clark Kent that is in Metropolis. And Superman has to go check this out. And these stories are really about him investigating Clark and this weird intertwined life that they currently have. So that's this cover is really a great representation of that story.
So we release Action Comics twice monthly. We also release New Superman once a month. We have another twice monthly book, Superman Proper. We've got the team here. This question also comes from our Twitter feed, and it's for Dan and Pete and Pat as well, who co-writes the Superman here. How difficult is bringing a new and fresh interpretation to a character that has been written about for so long?
Difficult.
Very difficult.
Very difficult.
No, it's just honestly, you gotta let yourself think about what you loved about the character when you first encountered it. And that's how Pat and I talked about it. And that was our way in, remembering all the special things and all the things that, that make Superman just the character that, we gravitated towards when you're younger. And all his values and moral and ethics, as silly as it sounds today, which we need even more of today, just kind of, it stays with you. And that's the kind of character we wanted to bring to the table, in Rebirth.
Yeah, it was really about, just putting that familiar aspect of Superman back out in front of people, with the new twist, with, family and all the things that are going on around him. It gives us a different way to kind of explore something that's familiar but still be surprising. And I think, having John be in the story is a great way for us to view Superman. And it was really important to us to just have Superman come back and feel trustworthy, and inspiring. And so that's what we've been trying to do, especially in the first 2 issues with him and John and the Son of Superman storyline that we're in the middle of.
I think you really set the tone when you had your 2-page spread with the Shield, right? The Return of the Shield. But your first couple issues have really set the tone with the relationship between the father and his son and what you're doing there.
We've done that before, I think. Didn't we? Something? I can't remember. It was something.
Some guy with a cowl.
Yeah.
That's something that Pat and I really just, being dads also, it's one of those things where to be able to do that in a story with Batman and Robin and their special, distinct characteristics, and then come and do, Superman and John, it's pretty special to be able to handle it, and we're glad it kind of worked out that way, that, Dan did, Lois and Clark, and then sort of, got these characters up and going, and then just being able to delve into the family dynamic and write another book that was really a family affair, which, we both really love writing the character-based stuff, and the action stuff, of course, is always a blast, but to be able to do just Superman and Son just in their distinct situations is a blast and a privilege.
Outside of the challenge of the deadlines, you guys find the pacing of a twice-monthly book different than when you work on monthlies? How do you approach your stories? Both art and script.
I've said it a few times already, and it's kind of, the pacing is a lot quicker. There's not a lot of second-guessing time. We go in there, and it's kind of like jazz, you just kind of be like, this would be cool, let's do this, and we just, I don't know, I think we just kind of follow where the emotional beats and the character beats take us. And we want to try and do a full and complete story, but it also kind of, it's kind of giving us opportunity to come up with stuff too on the fly as we go along, and hopefully you guys are reading it and enjoying it.
Right. Yeah, I mean, it's,
I was just going to add, I think that one of the great advantages of having a book that comes out twice a month is that you can explore corners of a story that you might not be able to explore in just a monthly book. That when you have 40 pages a month as opposed to 20 to play with, the audience is going to be back in 2 weeks, so you can detour off the main beats of the story a little bit and explore some things otherwise you wouldn't be able to. And I think that's what really helps build the story.
right. Yeah, and it really, like Dan and Pat were just saying, to me, as a reader, of comics for so long, I won't remember the fights, but I'll remember the small moments the most. So that allows us to do that, to bring a lot of these smaller moments into the books.
And how do you guys coordinate the stories between what's happening in action and what's happening in Superman?
We have a grand poobah, and so Eddie Brianza and Andrew kind of do a really awesome job trying to, keep all of our plates spinning in the air and, keep us all on track and all that stuff with screaming and kicking and hugs and love all the time.
All right, we got some more.
You guys get hugged?
Yeah,
I never do.
We got some more preview art here. You guys have
Eradicator.
spoil for us. That's what's going on here.
So this is, this is at the end of issue 2, and this is the Eradicator, as obviously based off of the original Eradicator. We brought back the yellow visor because he's not the Eradicator without it, basically. It's what we decided. And so we're kind of trying to figure out what his deal is at the moment. in the story it's unfolding right now, so I don't want to give too much away. But there are surprises around each corner.
All right, coming very soon is, actually it's actually available now, Superman 3.
It is very soon.
Actually, I believe it came out on Wednesday.
Yeah.
Did you guys get it? Okay.
Yeah. Now it's not going to have the schedule, I just, it's coming out.
Oh, we just wrote 4, but if her.
What's happening here?
Issue 3 was drawn by Jorge Jimenez, who did a great job in there. He's not on the panel today, but I don't know.
But yeah, he's our other artist that we're gonna with Pat and Doug. Jorge will be our other team member on this, and he brings his own cool dynamic style to the book, which we're really psyched about. So, and obviously he'll be doing another book coming up in the future. So yeah, we're having a blast with everybody, and he did some really nice stuff in this issue, especially with the Eradicator, Krypton stuff.
So I'll line up for your questions now, and I have one more question from our Twitter feed, and I know the answer to this, but you guys, it's a free-for-all here. Polycomic asks, it's simple, will we ever see the red shorts again?
See who?
The red
shorts.
Oh. I'd like to.
I'd like to.
And they weren't shorts. It was all sewn in as one part of the costume. It wasn't a separate pair of shorts. And I put that in stories, and I say it all the time, so let it be written, so let it be done.
Yes.
You could just do red pants with blue chaps. Would that work? I don't know. That might be weird.
Hang on, Earth 18.
A lighter one, and that is the Superman's boots. The fact that they're blue, I guess, instead of the traditional red. I guess my question is, what drew you to that decision? I know that's kind of a basic.
Where's Jim Lee?
That was, yeah, where's Jim? I know. Actually, when we started this, DC asked me to design Superman's costume, which is kind of a weird thing to ask, because I think we know what Superman's costume looks like. So I went and I gave them my take on it, and there was some back and forth and notes and things like that. The boots were their idea. I think it works. I like how it works. The important thing to me is just in having his outfit be instantly recognizable, instantly trustworthy, and inspiring that hope. And I think that there's a lot of emphasis, especially in the day and age of internet and previews and things like that, where there's a lot of speculation. But really, the outfit doesn't make the character; it's the character that makes that outfit mean something. And so, I like the idea of us having this kind of slightly tweaked version because hopefully we'll write a good story and the character will come through and be represented in that outfit.
And the second question would be,
You can ask me afterwards if you want.
Hey guys. So one of the great things about the relationship between Batman and Superman is just how different they are, right? It's a very awesome contrast to see. It can propel stories and relationships very well, as we've seen with many other characters and stories throughout history. And you can kind of see that Damian takes on a lot of the traits of Batman. You can also see that John, from what little we've seen in these issues, takes on a lot of the traits and the ideals as his father. I was just wondering if and when Damian and John start to interact with each other, is that relationship going to be very similar? Is there going to be sort of a sidestep? Is it going to be a little bit different? I guess, yeah.
What do you think?
I don't want to think on another thing.
Can't talk too much about that.
Yeah. It's a great question, and I think it would be really cool to see.
Yeah, I'd love to see Robin and Superboy interact. That would be a lot of fun.
Agreed.
If only there was going to be a book at some point.
Next question.
Hi, my name is Adrienne Perez, and I'd like to be a feature writer for DC. So my question is, oh no, you might see my face in a few years. So I was wondering, I don't know if you've you guys have read Grant Morrison's DC 1 Million. It takes place in the 853rd century, and there's a future version of Superman called Superman Prime, arguably one of the most powerful beings in the DC universe, and I have my own little whack job theory that he might be the presence, but I'll save that for another time. So I was wondering, is he going to be incorporated, if you guys have any plans for adding Superman 1 Million, and maybe even to show, I don't know how it could interact in the greater DC universe or DC multiverse, or you could get crazy and say omniverse?
Say crazy. That's good.
I can say that we haven't gone down any of that road at this point in time, so you never know. But that was, I was editing, I was on staff editing at that time, so I really enjoyed that series. But who knows? It's definitely, there's a lot of good material and a lot of good variations in the characters that could definitely, be pretty cool to incorporate into the current stuff. So keep on.
More aimed towards Dan, but obviously if any of you others can chime in, please do. Following the Convergence limited series, what have the Time Masters been up to?
We dealt with that a little bit in Convergence, and we've talked about a couple of things where we want to explore some of that at some point, and it's on my list of things to get to, so hang in there, we'll get to it. The nice thing about 2 books a month is we can get through material pretty damn quick.
Thank you so much.
Yep.
In the meantime, the Time Masters are on the CW with Teases Legends of Tomorrow. Yes.
Hello, everybody. Pete, I really loved your run on Green Lantern Corps. That was definitely one of my favorite runs. I was crazy yesterday for Death of Superman, being my first book and being in my heart. This question's for you guys. What is it like to go back and rewrite like guys like Doomsday, Eradicator, and bring back that 90s feel back to the comics? Is it new old characters with fresh ideas, or you're trying to shore up some stuff, or what is that like?
Well, I think part of it is that it gets to the point a little bit of what Rebirth is about, and then why do we do it? And I think part of what Rebirth's mission was to find the core characteristics that make Superman a success. It is to define who is Superman, what do we recognize most in him, what do we like most about him, and that kind of thing. And one of the reasons we chose Doomsday is to put him up against a foe that he had fought before, knowing it was a famous story. But by changing the circumstances around that fight now and changing the characters around the fight, Luthor is obviously different, John is there, we can say new things about Superman. It's not enough to want to go back and look at the 90s. I don't want to do that. To me, it's all about what can you find now that's a little bit different, and a way to say something different about Superman as he exists today.
Ditto.
Awesome. Thanks, guys.
I think what you're doing is really with Superman and his son is going to be really interesting. One of the most beloved characters of the Superman universe is Lois Lane, as this really interesting, powerful, independent female character. I'm wondering how she's going to play a role in the Superman comic and what her role is going to be. Is she going to be Superman's wife and Jonathan's mother, or is she going to have a more independent storyline?
Well, in Superman, I know Pat and I we're Lois is, a main character who we look on, like you just said, as a strong woman, and really, aside from being a mother and a wife, as a partner. So it's, we've got some pretty crazy stuff coming up with her in an issue.
Issue 5.
In issue 5 that I think you'll find pretty cool. But yeah, we're not relinquishing her into sort of pushing her into the shadows. There's a lot of cool stuff coming up with Lois, and I know Dan's got a hell of a lot.
Yeah, I think that it's one of the things that it's always important to remember is, and this is my feeling about working on Action Comics. Action Comics really is the cornerstone, not only of DC in a lot of ways, but I think the entire industry. Without Action Comics #1, we probably don't have what we all love today in terms of this art form. But the second part of that is, we all know that's true because that's where Superman debuted. Lois Lane also debuted there, and I take that seriously, and I think it means something very important about who Lois is, and we have some very particular ideas coming up for her that explores the concept of what does it mean for Lois to be a mother, and how do we portray that situation that she's in, not so she's always just, and this is what we said way back when we had her marry Superman in the first place, she can't be Mrs. Superman. It's got to be far more than that. So we're very aware of that, and I think we have some good stuff coming up.
I really love her role in Action Comics right now too, and just with the whole John thing, and you know, she's a mother, she's trying to protect him, and she doesn't want him to grow up too fast, and obviously, you know, he has his powers, and you know, she's helping him try to harness those powers and learn them without just basically helping him kind of grow, and you know, you got Superman there with Doomsday now, and he's kind of come out now, and John is watching this all go down on TV, and Lois doesn't want him to see this because, you know, she knows what Doomsday is and what he can do, so she kind of downplays it a little bit with John, but I think John's enjoying it. He can't stop watching it. He wants to watch his dad, and he's happy to see him, you know, hopefully defeat Doomsday, and he gets a couple good blows in there, and John gets really excited. But I think in Lois's mind, she just kind of knows how this could end. And that's the fun thing about these issues is, you know, it's kind of leading in that direction. And of course, with that cover we saw earlier, you know, Doomsday gets a little too close. So I think she plays a big role in Action for sure.
Have you read the Lois Lane novels that we have out? We have 2 of them.
I've not read the novels now.
The novels are out there, and they're great because they're Lois Lane stories, and it's Lois Lane prior to being Mrs. Superman, because she is a character unto herself. Absolutely.
And thank you, I'll look forward to it.
Come on, get your cap.
So, you know how they're gonna have Super Sons with Damian and Jonathan? And I also know that Damian's gonna make the Teen Titans and find Beast Boy, Starfire, Raven, Kid Flash, all those people. Do you at least know if Jonathan's gonna join the Teen Titans?
I don't know if they can handle Damien.
Not that we know of. I don't think there are any plans for him to join at the moment, but it is a good idea. Maybe, who knows?
Pete Tomasi says no.
Hi, first of all, I want to thank you guys. I really appreciate what you're doing with Lois and Clark and John and everything. It's a great story. It's kind of an off-the-wall question. We've seen Batman 66 and Wonder Woman 77. Any chance of a Superman 55? Or
That's more for you, Hank.
Yeah.
What do you got?
Not currently, but those first 2 that you mentioned, there's some more plans for those 2. So come to our Crossover Classics panel on Saturday.
Okay.
The big reveal there.
Cool.
I was wondering if, since we all know that in Superman number 52, the panel where Superman basically turns to dust, lightning hits Lois Lane and Lana Lane, but we already know what's going to happen to Lois becoming Superwoman, but we don't know what's going to happen to Lana Lane. And also I was wondering, since Lois Lane's going to become Superwoman, does that mean that you could put basically the pre-52 Lois Lane into the Daily Planet with Clark Kent?
I think we know who wins the most perceptive reader in the room award. You hit on some very good points, soon to be revealed, perhaps. So stay tuned, but those are really, really good questions.
Thanks for reading everything very closely.
Yes, I love that.
Come get your cap, and don't forget to pick up Superwoman number 1, wherein a lot of that will be revealed.
Yes.
comment, then a slight question. I've never bought Superman in my life until now.
Well, I'm done.
I'm sorry. I've never, the whole Rebirth thing is one of the coolest things. I'm in the wrestling business. If it's the Watchmen, we're saying it's the greatest comic book invasion angle ever. Okay? But here's the deal. I've never, like I said, I've never bought this book, and now I'm here in this panel. I go to my comic book shop and I ask, did Superman come out this week? You guys are doing an amazing job.
Thank you.
The story of Superman with his son and his wife is the most humanistic story I've ever seen of this character. And the one question that I have is this, and I hope, please do not turn Lex Luthor back. Please don't. There's nothing more to do with him as a villain. The bottom line is this, my question is, how hard is it to write Lex Luthor after all this history that he had as a villain, to write him the way you're writing him now?
I wrote an issue of Justice League that came out a couple of weeks ago, Justice League 52, which explored Lex. And I think what's fun about Lex is he is so complex that I think there are many different angles of him that are out there to be explored. And one of those is, we know that Lex is trying to do the right thing. The question is, can he really, when the chips are down, follow through and do that? Because we also know he's a murderer. And you can't, to me, atone for that until you stand up and say, I murdered someone, right? So the question really is, can Lex be a hero? No matter how hard he wants to be, how much he wants to be, can Lex be a hero? And that's what we want to explore.
Great job, guys.
Thank you. And by the way, there are a few trade paperbacks you should check out. And you should read the Superman Lois and Clark series. Because that, I think you'd like it.
So, the Eradicator has ties to Krypton. Doomsday has ties to Krypton. Virtually every creative team for the last 15 years has come out with a new version of Krypton almost every 2 years like clockwork. I noticed in Superman #1 that you used what looked to be the pre-1985 classic old-school Jor-El and Laura. I wasn't sure if that was an indication of your plans for Krypton, or if that's something you can suggest that we keep an eye out for.
You drew it.
I did draw it. Yeah, it has something to do with something. Maybe.
Okay, that's good enough for me.
How do the creative processes between working on Batman and Robin and Superman similar and different?
More fighting? No.
When Pete wrote that he wore a Batman shirt, and when he writes Superman, he wears a Superman.
Right. No, it's a scenario where, I mean, we've been working together since Green Lantern Corps, so it's, you know, we're talking a lot of years, way too many that I want to even think about. But no, it's just, you get comfortable with somebody and we both can sort of, we're like an old married couple. We can, you know, read each other's thoughts. We know we're sort of on the same page, what we want to do with things. And right now with Superman, we're just, you know, we get on the phone and we talk through everything about, you know, the entire stuff that we're doing, and it's a lot of fun.
And there's a lot of back and forth too. I mean, we talk quite a bit. You know, I've learned a bit. You know, I didn't always write at DC, and so you know, a lot of that was working with Pete and just having someone that's actually there with you alongside you to work is a great way to work when you can. And I don't know, we just kind of we really care about these books, and we really care about what you guys like.
We really do.
Yeah, and we just want to make, you know, great comics. At the end of the day, something we can be proud of, and you know, just really fuels it. So.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Cool costume, by the way.
Hi. I just wanted to know if you were like scared to, you know, alienate new readers or old readers by having all the complications of having a dead Superman from the New 52 and then having a pre-Flashpoint Superman taking over. Like, you have to explain all that before you start, you know, to read Superman. Were you ever saying, you know, maybe this is not a good thing to do, maybe it's too much complication?
Well, I mean, in Superman Rebirth, you know, I think one of the things we try to do is also always think about new readers coming on board, because the older readers or the people who are more versed in the continuity, they can get into the swing of things a little easier sometimes. But it's important sometimes to really come into a story like that we're coming into that just, and it sounds, you know, I don't want to say it's off-putting, but you sort of have to let go sometimes and just kind of go with what's in front of you as a reader and just trust in the writer and the artist and let them kind of take you on a journey and just go along with it and not get too burdened with other things about the past and how they're always completely interconnected. And so it's one of those things that's sort of just kind of, you can't let it feed your reading all the time. Just sort of let yourself go and, you know, be immersed in the present, so to speak. But, you know, then there's always the great stuff about continuity as a base, which you can draw from. And obviously with the initiation of Rebirth, there's a lot of stuff coming down the pike about, you know, connective tissue on all that stuff in the DCU. So it's the way I look at myself as a reader. I've never been one to get too bogged down in continuity. So that's completely my opinion of just letting the current teams take me on the journey and kind of trust in them and see where it goes.
Thank you very much. Our young expert who was here recently explained Superman's death and everything else, so if he can get it, I assume everybody does.
Well, thank you very much.
We're good.
One quick thing, Peter. I loved your run on Nightwing. I loved it.
Oh, thank you
very much.
Thank you.
Hi. When the New 52 launched, there was this strong push to end the relationship and the marriage between Superman and Lois Lane. Now you've not only brought back the marriage, but now they have a child. What changed in wanting to not have Superman be married, but now bringing that back again? And I prefer Superman and Lois married anyway, so...
I mean, I'll toss it to Dan. Dan sort of both had the opening salvo on it.
I think that this gets back to what we think of as these characters, and there are certain things we understand about them. I think we have always understood, all of us, that historically in Superman comics, and this goes back to Action number 1, there has always been a connection between Lois and Superman. And I think when the New 52 launched, it wasn't just that they weren't married, it was that there was no connection. And in the absence of that is something we all recognize. I think we felt it. I went in and wrote Superman like from issues 7 to 12 or something like that right after the book launched, and you could feel that there was something missing there. So it wasn't just the fact that they weren't married, it was there was no connection whatsoever. And Lois was in the book and Clark was in the book, but without that connection, the context of who these characters are was lost. And I think what we wanted to do is bring back context to these characters because that is who they are.
Thank you.
Know if you knew why DC made Kryptonite Superman's weakness.
Ooh, that's a tough question. You know what? I honestly don't know. Do you know?
I don't know the absolute history of that, no. But it was a good idea.
The radio show? The radio show did?
Yeah, that's what I thought. Yeah.
Okay. There was back in the old days, there was something called a radio. and people used to listen to these stories on the radio, and I think when they were doing Superman, they ended up actually introducing Kryptonite during the course of the radio show, and then the comics actually took it and put it in the comics.
Yep.
There you go.
All right. Last question.
Shadow, no.
Okay, Rebirth is all about legacy, and part of Superman's legacy is the Legion of Superheroes. Will we be seeing the Legion again at some point in the Superman books, maybe interacting with John?
No comment.
That's a tough question to answer at this early juncture.
Okay, so it's possible.
But you should track down the kids who can break down everything by panel, because they're having some hints dropped in a panel or two in the last couple of months.
Thanks.
You're welcome.
I'm just going to add too. The thing with John too, he's very much in the shadows right now. So there's a lot of people that will be out there for him to meet eventually. That's something great.
All right, time. Thank you all for coming to the DC Superman panel. Let's give